What is going on, everyone? Prince of Wales here, and today, with the release of Summer Avenger, a new debate has sprung about in the Fate community. Who is better, or Space Ishtar? If you really look at it, they're essentially the same unit. So if you have one of them, you don't really need the other one, but it's always fun to take a look to see who's better. So in this video, we are going to be breaking each unit down, looking at their stats, their skills, their cards, their MPs, everything you can think of, even their passives, and we are going to determine by merit which one is better. You'll be seeing gameplay of both of them in the background. They're both very good, I'm just going to preface with that, but without further ado. Alright, so we're going to start by taking a look at their stats and as well as their decks. So looking at Kama's attack stat, she's got a very, very solid 13.2k at level 90, and then that goes all the way up to 17k at level 120. That's insane. HP, not very impressive, 11.7k, goes up to 15k at level 120. This is a very standard, like, archetype, very high attack, very low HP. Honestly, you're not really going to have to worry about the HP stat too much because these servants' main focuses are damage and looping, so the HP is not going to be too important. We move down to our NP gain stat, 0.52%. It's very middle of the road. There are definitely some servants that have way higher, but there are also servants that have lower. So it's pretty good. You can see in the gameplay that even though this is pretty mid, it doesn't really matter. She still gets the job done. Star Gen, 6.1%. You're not really going to have to care about the Star Gen stat with Kama. With Space Ishtar, you might, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But with Kama, it definitely does not matter at all. We look at her deck, 2 quick, 2 arts, 1 buster. It's a more NP gained focus deck with the single buster card. We look at the hits, 4 quick, 3 art, 3 buster, 5 extra. That 5 extra is going to be really strong, especially with like her kit, which we'll get into later. And then we look at the hits on the quick and the arts. 3 is definitely pretty good, 4 is definitely pretty good. And with Kama, unlike most arts loopers, you might actually be inclined to use her face cards, and we'll get more into that later as we discuss the skills. So overall, Kama, looking pretty good. Let's move on to Space Ishtar. Okay, so if we look at her attack, it is around 12.5k, which is a little bit lower. It's almost 500 lower than Kama's, right? Let's just double check. Well, oh wow, it's more than 500. So it's very much lower than Kama's. And we look at the HP, it is very much higher than Kama's at 13k, and then those go to 16k, 16k at level 120. So again, HP stats not really going to matter. The attack is what you're going to really want to look at when comparing these, and this is definitely sizably lower than Kama's. We move down to one of the other most important skills, NP charge on attack. That's a staggering 0.69%. Funny number, and that is much higher than Kama's. That is much higher than Kama's. Look at the Star Gen, which, funnily enough, is almost exactly the same as Kama's at 6%. And with Ishtar, it might actually matter, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Looking at the deck, 1 quick, 2 arts, 2 busters. So this is a more damage-focused deck with the 2 buster cards. She's got the same amount of hits on the quick card for 2 on the arts, which is less than Kama, and even though it's only a difference by 1, that will make a difference. And then she's got 5 on the extra, which is exactly the same as Kama's. And again, this extra attack being 5 is actually going to play into Space Ishtar's kit, just like it does in Kama's. So again, very powerful overall. Now, since we are going to be divvying up points here, I would have to give this one to Kama. That attack right there is going to be much more influential in the long run than any of these other stats are, because from the gameplay you can see they both loop pretty easily, and we'll talk about that more, like how they're able to loop. But this attack is going to help you do more damage to clear those higher level waves, because the waves are getting more difficult in this game, and I think Kama is going to be able to edge her out in the damage department, just looking at the stats alone. Alright, so taking a look at their skills, this is where things become a little bit more interesting. I'm just gonna state this right off the bat. Their skills, their kits are very similar at base value. They both have their command card buffs. They both have They both have self-preservation skills. They both have MP damage skills, and they both have 50% batteries. So, honestly, at surface value, they're almost exactly the same. But when you start to look at it, you'll start to see the major differences. So Kama's first skill, it's an arts buff, 30%, 3 turns, and then it gives a 2-hit evasion. So this is her self-preservation skill as well as her steroid skill. Normally you're just going to want to use this one like right off the bat if you're looping to get that 3-turn arts buff, and you're good. Second skill, NP damage, 20%, 3 turns. And then she also has a 100% chance to charm all the enemies. Obviously this is going to vary depending on their magic resistance, but it says 100% there, so we're just going to go with it. That charm is actually very, very important to her damage, actually, and we'll get into that when we talk about their noble phantasms. But honestly, this skill, you can either pop this on the first rotation because you got that 3-turn NP damage boost, or you can save it for the last rotation if you need that extra bit of damage from the charm. Moving on, third skill, 50% battery. What more can I say? It's a 50% battery on a 6-turn cooldown. Very good. It also has this interesting ability here where whenever Space Ishtar attacks, she'll inflict a Heartfelt Blaze debuff on the enemy. And this is going to stack several times, and the more stacks you have of it, the more damage you're going to be doing, which is why I said earlier that Kama's command cards actually kind of matter a little bit, because if you're on that final wave and you need that extra bit of damage, just pop 2 of her command cards before the MP and she'll be doing a little bit more damage. And you can stack this up to 10 times and you're going to be doing insane damage when you've got those 9-10 stacks. So honestly, very strong skills. Let's move on to Ishtar's. Okay, so first skill here. This is kind of an interesting charisma. It gives her 20% attack, and then it gives her allies 30% attack. And then it also gives them a charm debuff, which is, I guess, nice to have, or a charm resistance debuff, or buff, sorry. Which I guess is nice to have, but it's not really going to come in handy too many times. But it's there, so why not? But this 30% attack and 20% attack, this is such a great support skill, honestly. So strong. When looping, you just want to pop this turn 1, much like Kama's first skill. Just pop it in there for the 20% damage for 3 turns. Second skill, this is her NP damage skill. You want to it's only 1 time, which is kind of whatever, but you'll see why it's 1 time in the second part. It also gives her invul, which is, I guess, her self-preservation skill, but you're going to be wanting to use this more for its primary effect here, which it allows her to change her NP card type. You can either choose Quick, Arts, or Buster. And what this does, essentially, is it allows her to loop with any support caster in the game, pretty much. You want to use Arts? Sure, use Castoria. You want to use Quick? Use Scotty. You want to use Buster? Use Talonwell. And what this does, like, this skill has such great utility, because it allows you to kind of just, like, if you have Castoria but not Scotty, good, you can loop with Arts. If you have Scotty but not Castoria, good, you can loop with Quick. It just opens up so many paths for you to take with this card, which I think is incredible. And then we've also got the 20% NP damage. If you're going to be looping with Arts, because her NP is originally Arts, you want to pop this at the end so you can get that one-time 20% NP damage. But if you're wanting to loop with Quick, you want to pop this skill on turn 1. So, there you go. Very unique skill, one of the most unique skills in the game. And it's on a 5-turn cooldown, so pretty good. Her third and final skill is another interesting skill. It's a 50% battery on a 6-turn cooldown, so already very good. And then it also has this kind of RNG factor where 80% to get each of the different command card buffs. And they're all 20% for 3 turns. So depending on your confidence in your looping ability, you can pop this skill whenever you need it. So if you didn't fill your gauge, pop it to fill your gauge. If you want those buffs at the beginning throughout the entire stage, and you know you can get your charge without needing the battery, pop it on turn 1. This kind of RNG aspect it can be interesting, but it also can be really annoying. Say you're like looping with Scotty, and you're like, all right, I'll pop this skill, and then you end up getting the arts and the buster buff, but not the quick buff. Like, I don't know. It's super annoying. But anyway, that's Ishtar's skills. So now to give out points. I think while the skills are very, very similar, I think that Space Ishtar's skills are more like, they're more utility based and support based, but at the same time they buff her heavily. So I'm gonna say Space Ishtar gets this points from sheer utility, sheer just support. Kama definitely is gonna be very selfish with her skills, but Space Ishtar is selfish and supporting at the same time. So I'm gonna have to give this one to Space. Alright, we're just gonna glance over their passives. They both have a ton of passives. Kama has 7, and I believe Ishtar has 6. The only passive that really matters for these two is their self-replenishment. And if we look at Kama's, she generates 3.8% every turn, and then we look at Ishtar, she generates 3.5% every turn. So just to get this passive comparison out of the way quickly, we're just going to give this point to Kama, because the most important passive, obviously, this one is better on Kama than it is on Ishtar. Okay, so finally we're going to be taking a look at their noble phantasms. So starting off with Kama's very respectable 4 hits on the NP. This paired with her pretty good NP stat, or NP gain stat, is going to yield a lot of NP, and you can see in the gameplay it's honestly insane. So effect, not too great, reduced defense by 20% for 3 turns. It's nice to have, but you're not really going to see this play a huge role in her effectiveness overall. This is where things get kind of crazy though. Her overcharge effect, deal extra damage to charmed enemies. This plays in perfectly with her second skill. You pop that and you're going to be getting a ton more damage. It goes from 150% to 200%. This right here is going to be what helps Kama hit insanely higher damage ceilings than most other arts loopers in the game, including Space Ishtar. So yeah, this is definitely very crazy. And the fact that she can just pull this off whenever she wants is also insane. Alright, so now looking at Space Ishtar's Noble Phantasm, or Noble Phantasms I should say, because she technically has multiple, just different command card types. They all do the same thing. 3 hits, which is significantly worse than Kama's. It's only a difference of 1, but this is going to make, a huge difference. She does have a slightly higher NP gain stat, so that almost balances it out, but it's definitely worse than Kama's. Effect, honestly, it's very interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen anything quite like this. Increased damage of extra attack by 100%. So in those rare cases where you do get a Brave Chain off after her Noble Phantasm, like providing they survive the Noble Phantasm, which is pretty rare, you're going to be doing more damage with her 5-hit extra attack. So honestly not too valuable, but it's, again, nice to have there. This is also pretty good right here, this overcharge effect. You love to see loopers that have stacking buffs on their Noble Phantasms. So for every Noble Phantasm you use of hers, you're going to be getting 20% to 60% extra damage on her Noble Phantasm. So since you're going to be looping with her, you're going to get multiple of these off. You're going to be having just insane NP damage buffs. I think this right here provides her of more consistent damage than Kama, but Kama's overcharge is going to just make her do so much more damage than Ishtar in the long run. So I think with that being said, I will have to give the final point to Kama simply because of this overcharge effect. It's just too strong. Honestly, it's insane. In practice, you can see in the gameplay, her damage numbers on that final wave, or whenever you pop this skill, are just insane. So yeah, the final point definitely has to go to Kama. One more thing before I wrap up this video, just look at this Ascension real quick. I think this is worth at least 5 points, so +5 to Kama. Moving on. Alright, so in the end, I think we have a clear winner here but don't take my word for it. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I mean, at the end of the day, this game all comes down to personal preference. So whoever you enjoy using more is definitely going to be the favorite in your eyes. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, and subscribe. See ya.